Hello, everyone. I think we're about ready to get started here. Hi, I'm Dr. Elencia Bowen, the Executive Director of the Franklin University Leadership Center, and I'm so excited that you're able to join us today for this topic of women in leadership. We have some wonderful speakers here today. Want to share with you that our mission at the Leadership Center is to create an environment that shares knowledge and then also shares innovative leadership practices. We do all of this through advanced teaching, transformative learning experiences, and we also recognize that we're compiling everything that we're doing and embodying individuals to do all of this in a dynamic, rapidly changing global community. We're excited that you're here and it's almost noon, and we're appreciative of you spending your time with us. This morning, we will have Sherry Mercurio as our moderator, and so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sherry to introduce our panels.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bowen, and welcome everyone. When Dr. Bowen asked me if I would moderate this panel and she shared who was going to be on it, I immediately said yes. This is a great group of women who I think you're going to find through the next hour are really going to give you some insight into leadership, regardless of what gender you are. So with that, I'm going to give you a brief opening of each one. First, we're going to start with Dr. Kim Campbell. She is a Director of Enrollment Management at Mount Carmel College of Nursing. She relies on more than 30 years of education, human resources, and healthcare experience to shape strategic enrollment efforts for Mount Carmel's College of Nursing. We also have Irina Batsenko. She is founder of Mulberry Club Business. She is a business owner, professional business coach, and teacher with international project experience. Joining us as well is Elena Lagunina. She is Director of Education and Development at Belarusbank. She has 20 years of experience in the banking sector, overseeing the development of digital banking services and promotion of banking products. Also joining us is Margie Pizzuti. Margie is former president and CEO of Goodwill Columbus. She has an extensive background in strategic marketing, communications, and public affairs, which is evidenced through a portfolio of high visibility accomplishments, one of which includes being a keynote speaker a few years ago at one of our very own commencement ceremonies. So I want to say welcome to our panelists. Before we get into our questions, and I know we have a lot of them, I want to do a little housekeeping. We have some questions that we've preloaded, so we'll go through those. And then at the end, we'll stop a little early. And at that point, I'll ask folks if you have questions, put them in the chat and we'll go through those as many as we can. I think as we get into this, you're going to find that there's a lot that comes out of it. So if we can hold questions to the end, I think we'll be good to go. And from there, I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in with our first question, which I think I'm going to have, I'm going to send out to Margie. Sorry, I'm going to put you on the hot seat first.
Okay.
What are some characteristics of a great leader?
You know, that's a terrific question. And really quickly, I think of 6 characteristics, but most importantly, be authentic. I'm a servant leader, and I believe in humility as the servant leader. Just recognize in every way and in every day that it takes a village to do whatever you're doing. You're not doing it by yourself. And always understand and be authentic and know your true north. That's the first. The second is you need to have a capacity to multitask. You need to delegate to really smart people and let them do their jobs, and they'll really make you look capable and competent because you are. But you can always delegate but never abdicate because you're ultimately the person who's in charge. Find your own voice in a world that is consumed by 30-second segments and prepackaged everything. Find your own voice and find your own narrative, or others will find it for you. So embrace your passion. Life's too short. Make sure that what you're doing makes your toes tap every day, most days, not all the time, and move out of your comfort zone. As a good leader, Eleanor Roosevelt said, do one thing every day that scares you. And I think that's something to recognize and really be open to and pursue mentors. I've been blessed in my life, and it's really important to have mentors. So.
Great advice. I love the idea of getting out of your comfort zone. I'll actually, that's a great segue. I'm going to throw that same question out to Irina. I mean, you founded your own business, so that has to be a big step out of your comfort zone. What do you think makes a good leader?
Well, leadership and a good leader, actually, it's a person who possesses or who knows the art of mobilizing others to want to struggle for shared vision, for shared ideas, to be together every day. And leadership is an ability to unite all people around you to be with you and to follow the idea that you actually see. I used to work for an American organization, Jewish Healthcare International, and we had the head of the company, Steve Kartner, who was a unique person, and I couldn't understand. He was not the director of the organization, but he was the leader of the organization. What's the difference? And the director mentioned, he's not the director. He's the person who owns a vision and we follow him. So probably, the leadership, in my understanding, is an ability to show other people to where to move, where to go, to inspire them, to give them maybe the meaning of their work, the meaning of their activities. Probably it's not the definition, but it's my understanding of this term.
That's a great perspective. Excellent perspective. As I assumed, we're going to get a lot of different perspectives. So thank you. For this one, I'm going to turn to Dr. Campbell. Are there skills, behaviors, or a perspective that women bring to leadership that are unique?
That is an excellent question and one I've pondered. So for the gentlemen out there, please don't take any exception, but I would say that women are wonderful at demonstrating empathy, which I think is very, very important. We do a really good job of helping people feeling nurtured, valued, which is important when you are looking at leadership. And we do have high emotional intelligence. I've got a good Harvard Business Review article that talks about that. And of course, that also is helpful when you think about building relationships. And I think those two things are really, really good because, as you know, women wear lots of hats always, and being able to demonstrate that empathy, having that strong emotional intelligence, and being flexible also is a quality that women are really, really good at. We do it in our everyday lives, and certainly being able to do that in leadership. One of the things that I also was looking at is handling crisis situations. There is something that's called the glass cliff, not the glass ceiling, which is when women are put into positions of leadership, not all the time, but a lot of times, they're put in place to handle situations that were already broken. And we are asked to step up, and obviously the opportunities for failure is high, but guess what? We usually persevere and sort of forge through. And so, yeah, women have lots of great skills that are unique to the situation. I think we demonstrate that over and over again.
Great perspective. Elena, what are your thoughts? Same question.
Thank you, Sherry. I have a slightly different thing in mind. Because I have a special experience in banking and financial sphere. So this is, I think that the division of managerial skills to female and male is conditional. Because classically, we say that women are more emotional, are more intuitive, women like to involve, to motivate their employees. But here in our financial sector, I see that we have the same men here. And I don't see the difference. I think that it's individually for each leader. And it's difficult to say that women have something special. Yeah, we have a different maybe vision of life. And I know that if men and women try to decide the same business issue, it will be a different decision. And it would be better if both participate in working out such a decision. So I think that it's better if both genders will participate in business. That's my opinion.
Sorry, I was on mute. The biggest saying of 2020. Sorry, you're still on mute. I'm going to throw this one out to Irina. Can you describe a woman leader you really admire and why?
Well, actually, I admire all women in Belarus nowadays. You know, probably you will support me in my efforts to show how special they are now fighting for their rights, for their, maybe for their future, for their children, for their businesses. So I can't say that I admire only one woman. You know, I used to admire Margaret Thatcher when I was young, very young, you know, then some scientists. When I went to university, and my mentor in PhD was Professor Babinska. I admired her stamina, her devotion to her students. You know, I'm changing, and every day I have new role models, but I definitely admire nowadays Svetlana Tikhanovskaya and all women who are today in the first front, at the front of our society. You know, in business, we have lots of leaders who are actually very special, you know, but I can't name only one person in business.
You brought a great point when you said, you know, we're constantly developing. So it makes sense that the person you had as your the person you admired and your role model at 20 is probably going to be different than the person you look at in your 30s or your 40s or your 50s or your 60s. You're a different person, and your pathway and your experience are different. So great perspective. I'm gonna throw that one out to Kim Campbell as well.
Okay, now I'm off mute. So, you know, I pondered that question for a very long time, and I'll have to honestly say that like you just heard, there are lots of women that I admire, but I would think for me, the first woman that I truly admired was my grandmother who raised me. And I say that not just because she was a person who raised me, but she was a woman who did not have formal education, who came from South Carolina. And in retrospect, thinking about all the seeds that were planted, the lessons that were learned, a woman who, you know, really had not many means, but she had a little diner. She made me a good steward over everything that I encountered, which I still try to do today. There was a super life lesson that we always talked about because she knew how much I loved learning and I wanted to be in education, which I'm in today. But she always used to ask me, Kim, so what's more important to you? Is it knowledge or is it wisdom? And I never really quite understood. And I'm like, well, of course, I'm going to have knowledge and I'm going to get these degrees and I'm going to do these things. So long story short, one of the things that she conveyed that certainly resonates to me to this day was that she said, you know, knowledge is so good. And she saw that I was able to aspire to everything that I needed. But she shared it's the wisdom that you really want to have in doing everything that you do, because that's the thing that's going to save your life. And honestly,
great lesson.
That was, to this day, now I really get it. I didn't get it so much back then, but oh, I get it now. And then the other nugget that she dropped was that in moving along, because she felt I had a kind spirit, and she said, everybody's not so kind. And as you ascend to do things, you need to have the courage to be lonely. And I didn't really understand that either, but I do understand that now. So I would have to, hands down, say that Beatrice Campbell was the best thing going and still is for me, even though I admire so many women out there.
Great. It's a great lesson. And I think as women, we tend to be pleasers as a whole. And so being able to stand alone and not necessarily have an opinion or a direction that everybody agrees with is difficult. It's difficult for anybody. but I think sometimes as women, that's a little more difficult. So great lesson from your grandmother. I'm going to pose this next question to both Margie and Elena, especially based on the careers you've had and the industries you're in. And either one of you can go first. What challenges have you faced as a woman in a leadership role, and how have you overcome these challenges?
I'll start. First of all, I'm short. I'm vertically challenged. I know that sounds silly and superficial, but I'm 5 feet tall and I'm stretching it. And so particularly when you're in a room with particularly men, you really feel the challenge in making eye contact and not overcompensating for that. So I know that sounds silly and simple, but that is one thing. I don't know everybody else's heights, but that's one thing that I think was challenging for me. I've changed my view also over the last 40 years because from the time I started, and back when I was at the Chamber of Commerce and when I was in some other positions in leadership, I felt as though I need to do better than anyone else, any of the men in the room, in order to be equal. And I did do really well, and I knew I could. That has changed for me now. I think as I've developed my own brand and have achieved success in a lot of different positions. As you know, I was, the press secretary to a governor. I was at Children's Hospital. I was at a lot of other positions. I realized that you can assert yourself as a woman. It used to be when women asserted themselves, they were shrill. When men asserted themselves, they were assertive. And they were, good, strong leaders. And so I think I've had to manage through that to a large degree and temper my passion and my enthusiasm for everything so that I could be taken seriously. I now leverage that. Passion to me, and it's a different world. You can do both. You can be believable, and you can be knowledgeable, and you can be respected, and you can also be passionate. So those are the things I've learned over the years. And women have come a long way. We still have a ways to go in some different areas, but I think that there's this growing tsunami of recognition that women really need to take their place as leaders, and they are more and more.
Excellent perspective. Elena, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree with Margie. Yeah, women in business should be stronger than men. They should invest much more than men because employees, our peers, think that we are weak. That we're weak women. And I faced some difficulties when I became a leader 5 years ago, or when I became a director of new department, education and development department. My employees tried to find my weaknesses, so it took much more time for me to get credibility, to show that I'm a professional, I'm a real leader. Yes, it's a real work, it's a real job to prove that you are credible, that you are professional, and you should be very strong if you want to achieve some success in business. Because this is a very competitive world, and men think that they're better than we, as usual. Yeah.
Thank you. This is, again, I was so excited to be a part of this panel, to hear the different insights. And it's interesting to me how very different, yet there is a common thread of what we need to do to the work that has to be done just to feel as if we're equal. So I'm going to throw this question out to any of the four panelists that would like to answer it. Can you share an example of a time when you stumbled as a leader and what you learned from this experience? And this is often a hard thing to admit out loud. So I don't want to pick on any one person. So if any of our panelists would like to answer that question. And if not, I will call on someone.
I'll go. I'll take a stab at it. So very early on in my career, I had been in education for a while and was recruited away by a bank to manage a lot of their students, the student associates. They really wanted someone that worked with that population and they would teach me banking. So I was happy, got more money. They had a lot of money and I got to play with their money. So I was able to, implement a lot of great programming, but I also had to adopt one of the inner city schools, which I was happy to do. And so we worked with them and had summer programs. And part of their training was helping them to learn etiquette, how to socialize, how to work in an environment. We set up banking accounts for them, et cetera. One of the big things I thought I was going to get to do that was going to be great was to manage a lunch so that they would have an opportunity to meet with leaders and to engage. And we talked about communication skills, etiquette, et cetera. So I set up the corporate dining room, with Marriott at the time, when it was attached to the entity, set up everything. And I ordered these wonderful meals. And I was feeling good. This girl was, I'm like, oh, I'm not even a corporate person, but I'm doing this thing. I walk in the room, everybody's there, and no one is talking. No one is eating. And I was mortified. And I'm like, OMG. So finally, the senior leader, and yes, he was a senior VP. So to me, that was a little daunting, even though I'm banking, I guess, no disrespect to banking, but there's lots of folks with titles. But he was sitting there and he just said, what is the problem? And I'm thinking, yeah, what's the problem? And one of the students spoke up and said, we're so sorry, but we're not comfortable because this is chicken and we're used to eating with our hands at home. Even though they had utensils, they didn't quite know how to navigate it. Needless to say, I melted into the wall and about fell out and was just mortified, because here I thought I created a great scenario and an environment. And what it taught me was he, by the way, dismissed the chicken, ordered hamburgers and fries, and everybody was good. And he was very kind, and we had a conversation at the end. But one of the things it taught me was I was more focused on showing up well for that organization and those leaders, as opposed to thinking about my customers, which were those students. And that was a lesson that I have held. I never will forget that feeling, and I'll never forget who I'm supposed to be representing. And so that was a huge lesson for me.
That's a great, it's all about what you take away. The pain is what makes you better. Margie?
Yeah, I, as you may know, have had a really circuitous career. And one of the things that I did after I was the director of the Quincentennial Jubilee Commission, the 500th anniversary of Columbus's voyages to the New World, which had its own kind of trips and turns, I applied for and became the CEO of a startup online information company that made government records accessible electronically. And it was created by a partnership of the Ohio State Bar Association and a consortium of independent telephone companies in Kansas. But I thought I had never turned a computer on in my life before 1993. This was 93. I know that sounds crazy. So, I built the company and we got a lot of subscribers. This was a new thing. I worked with government agencies because I had worked with them to take their data, which was manual, and put it online. And after about 2 or 3 years, the board and the owners of the company, I wanted to take it in a certain direction and they wanted to take it in a different direction. And we parted ways. And that's the only time I was in a position where we parted ways. What I learned from that, though, and it was a great experience because it led me to Children's Hospital, so I took some time off, was that, number one, you have to do what is your passion. I never really got passionate about computers. We love computers, all of us, but and so for my life work experience, that was not what I really wanted to do. And I think that that was an important moment for me, which ultimately led me to Children's Hospital. But it makes you realize, as I said earlier, you got to step back and you got to be looking for your true north and what is really makes you passionate. And so that was the lesson that I learned a little bit the hard way.
Funny, when I'm hearing the two of you share your stories, there's the same piece in there. It's the authentic. Kim was focused on one thing instead of the why am I here? And you're talking about the same thing. And I think that that's a challenge that really leads us to the next question that I will open up. Irina and Elena, you are welcome to answer this as well, is what advice do you share with women who believe they're not capable of great leadership? So as you're thinking about why am I in this and how am I capable? What advice would you share for those who think maybe I'm not supposed to be handling this luncheon or I'm not supposed to be starting this company?
Actually, I think that not all women want to be leaders. Some women just want to be women, and we should distinguish leadership and a leader and a manager. Some women are good managers. They're very good teachers. Of course, they practice leadership in their work. They're good doctors, but not each surgeon is a good leader. We are all mothers, and not all mothers are leaders. Sometimes they're situational leaders, but not leaders every minute, because we should inspire. We should give opportunities to our children, to our students, to our employees, but it doesn't mean that all women should be leaders. We should assess our abilities. We should even coach ourselves. I would advise each woman just to take a piece of paper and ask herself a question: what makes me happy? What makes happy people around me? What is my passion? What are my goals, my objectives? So do I feel that I have enough strength to lead people, or it is enough for me to support someone in his or her path? It's very important, because I work with teachers, I work with CEOs of big companies, with businessmen, with politicians, and I can tell you that some of them are just good managers. They're not leaders. Of course, they have certain soft skills which make them leaders, situational leaders from time to time. But we should also understand that we can't be leaders every day and everywhere. There are direct and indirect leaders. Most women are indirect leaders, and they should know this. They should understand when they can influence other people. And for me, it's more important not to teach people to be leaders, but to understand what their passion is, what opportunities they can give to other people. That's very important. For example, I don't think about leadership, or I don't think whether I'm a leader or not a leader. Probably I'm a good leader, but a poor manager. That's why I have 2 directors and lots of people who support my ideas. I develop different curricula and programs. I work with different universities all over the world. I coach students to go to the best universities of the world. My students, I'm so proud of them. This year they got like 12, 13 offers from the best universities of the United States. I don't teach my staff, but my staff and people around me, they just look at this process and they join me in this process. So for all women, I should say, don't try to present, maybe to show that you are the only leader in this society. Be yourself. Play on your strengths, ignore your weaknesses. If you don't know physics, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Probably you can draw very well, or you can cook very well. We live in a textbook nowadays, so COVID, then political changes. The world is changing so fast nowadays. We can find the place where we will be very valuable, and that makes us a leader. So I think we shouldn't teach women to be leaders. We should teach women to be happy and to work for our future. We have a special mission, and we're very resourceful. Trust me, we are more resourceful than men in all aspects, but we should believe in ourselves.
Excellent, excellent feedback. Elena, I will throw that out to you if you'd like to comment, and I'm going to also give you the next question. So.
Okay, in my mind, there is no universal recipe to become a leader. Nobody can say if you be a good leader or no. This is only your way, your difficult path, and it's difficult to say if you be or not a good leader. But my advice is to believe in yourself. Try to set ambitious goals, try to be a leader, and like Irina said, try to understand if it is suitable for you. If you like to be a leader, is it yours or maybe no? Maybe, and also you should develop all time. You should develop at all stages of your leadership, from the beginning and all your leader life. It's the main rule.
Thank you. You actually answered a question I was going to ask, so I'm going to jump ahead to a question that I always love to ask in these, because I think it really puts you in kind of a vulnerable state, but is so impactful. If you could go back in time and give yourself some advice about developing as a leader yourself, what would you tell yourself, and why is that advice so important as you look back? And then I'm gonna start with you, Elena.
Okay. It's difficult to see. Maybe it was much more important for me to get more theoretical information about management those times. If we say about starting of my leadership career, because if you know theory, if you know managerial style, information about managerial styles and some managerial rules, it's much more easier for you to adapt to a leader and to a new leadership role. So if I had opportunity, of course, I took much more trainings, seminars, and participated in different conferences. And if you know much information, you needn't invent a new wheel. To learn all the time, to study, to gather new information all the time, it's really important. The other advice for me, maybe to create a self-brand for me, maybe to try to create something about myself, because here in bank we have very competitive environment. We have too many leaders, too many managers. We have more than 40 departments, more than 2,000 managers of different levels, from top management to line managers. So it's very important that you should be noted by top management, and they should see you among other managers. They should know that you are creative, innovative, and you're reliable, and it would be better for you and when you try to advance your career. So you should pay attention on your personal leader brand, especially in a big company. This is
Thank
my
you.
advice. Yeah.
Margie, I would throw that question out to you as well, if you're willing. And I think you're on mute, Margie. Sorry.
I did that just so you could say that, because everybody waits to hear that. Thank you. It's interesting to reflect back, because I just retired last month, and after an incredibly fabulous, blessed 45-year career. So how do I look back and reflect on, something I did earlier that I'd want to give myself advice now? Part of it is just recognizing that earlier in your career, you're trying to figure out what you want to do and what you want to be. And I think I was anxious about that. And that's why I have the most circuitous resume in life. I probably had 8 jobs before I got my job with Children's Hospital, even, and then with Goodwill, where I was there 15 years at Goodwill and 10 at the other. And so I felt like I was going from different positions. And when I reflect back, I recognize now that every single one of those positions led me to where I am. And so even those positions that were really a year, 2.5, 3 years, if I take a step back and I reflect on the accumulation of all of those experiences and recognize that in a way they were meant to be. There's a Hebrew word called beshert, and it is kind of destined or meant to be. And I really look back and I reflect, and I don't know that how that would make me a better leader now, but I really believe that in looking back, all of those pieces that brought me to where I am today are what really contributed to who I am as a leader.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know, Irina or Kim, if you'd like to comment. I'm going to throw out one more question, and then I'm going to open it up to anybody to see if they have questions in the audience. So Kim or Irina, would you like to comment on that?
I'll comment quickly. A number of years ago, I was a respiratory therapist, and that was by accident. That was nothing I intended to do. I took a job as an equipment technician, so I wouldn't have to go back home to Sandusky to work at Cedar Point yet another summer. So I took a job and I was making money, and I had an apartment at OSU's campus. And so fast forward, I did that career for a number of years, and I was fearless, and I did things that I never thought I would do and learn things I never thought I would learn. And then as my career progressed and moved in other directions, I encountered, some individuals who sort of planted seeds, and I began to sort of doubt myself. And I had someone even recently, when I was, thinking about doing some things, and they said, how is it that you were able to basically save lives, put people on ventilators, run code blues, et cetera, and now you have these questions? And so I would, the advice I would give is, always believe in yourself, be willing to take some risks. And, being a woman of faith, I thought that doesn't speak well to being a woman of faith if I'm not operating in a place of faith, knowing that, if I move forward, if God opens that door, then it's meant to be there, but if it's shut, it's okay. And I sort of forgot that along the way. So I guess my advice would be, remember who you are, and that it's okay to take some risks. And, even if you fall, you get back up and you keep going.
Absolutely. Irina?
If I had this wonderful opportunity, I would tell myself, don't skip stress management classes. That's number one. The second, don't waste your time, act fast, and be brave. So that's my advice.
I love it. I'm going to ask the audience if they have any questions to go ahead and put them in the chat box. And while we're waiting for that, I will say a couple of threads, if you will, I picked up on today. It's really knowing your true north, understanding why you are where you are, What do you really want to do? Being authentic. And then with that knowledge, not being afraid to step outside of your comfort zone. I think as everybody kind of talked about, lessons to give your younger self and what are leadership things, it's not being afraid to put yourself out there. If you stumble, you will get back up and it's okay. So I want to thank everybody for your input and see if I have any questions coming here. I've had a couple. Everybody is just great advice. Valerie Story, who I might add is one of our doctoral instructors, asked, why is it that a woman who is a leader is a woman leader whilst a man is simply a leader? I think that's more of a commentary than a question, but it's a great point. And it's a distinction that you hope as our society moves forward is a little less frequent, but a distinction that I think is still made. And I don't know if anybody had any comments on that.
Well, that was a really interesting observation, because I was looking at the chat box as we were talking, and sometimes I think, mostly unintentionally, we tend to reinforce it. It's Women's Leadership Month, and so we characterize that and we use that additional description as Women Leadership Month. I don't ever think I've ever heard a Men's Leadership Month. Don't get me wrong. Thank you. I'm proud and privileged to be included here. And I'm in a sense glad that there is that opportunity to highlight women leaders. But I think sometimes, and when will we get to the point, to your exact point about when we're leaders and we don't have to define leadership by gender or by race, or in any other way, but that we just use the term leader, and anyone can be in that category if they really act as leaders in the ways that we've all talked about together.
I agree. I think a leader is not defined by your title. It's defined by how you show up. It's what you do when you're there. And I think that leaders can be everywhere from an entry-level position to the president of a university. And I think that it's how you show up. I think this Dr. McDaniel gave a great question, and it's one that we talk about a lot, is how has what you learned as a leader at work translated to how you lead in your family life or vice versa? And there is crossover. I'm not going to give my input because I'm lucky to still be married sometimes, but I will throw that out to our panelists. Anyone? Irina, Elena, Elena, sorry.
Yeah. It's a real problem for me to switch my role from a leader to a weak woman at home, because I like to be a leader. I like to make some orders to my husband, to my family. So I usually try to control myself. I try to think about emotions of my family. I try to be a real woman. So I think that it's very important to think about your relatives, about your family, about their feelings, and to give them an opportunity to show themselves like a leaders too, because they want to show you that they can do something important for you. They also like to make some important decision for your family. So I think that's it is important to change your role at home. It's essential for us.
Absolutely. This is a great question. And I think this is from Shauna Lovelace, and she's actually on my team. As a family leader, as a female leader, how do you recommend moving forward when being told that your idea will not work? And this, I think, is impacted differently when you're a woman than you are a man, and not being sexist, but just, I think we take a different approach. So I'm curious to see what our panelists think to that.
Well, I, for one, have never been in a position where I was told my idea wouldn't work. Just kidding, of course. It gets back to the point I made earlier on about perceptions of women and how we have to accommodate or navigate through them. And that is the way we respond. And I think there still may be an expectation that if you're sharing with a woman who's a leader that your idea won't work, that you're going to fight back, and you're going to be not assertive but aggressive. And so I think I have learned to strike that delicate balance, because there's a part of you that clearly wants to listen to others, and you don't have all the best ideas in the room, particularly as a leader. So you really want to be open to acknowledging, also be in the spirit of humility, acknowledging, okay, that, wasn't a really good idea, and maybe putting it back on, but in a respectful way. Well, give me your thoughts on why that's not, and what you would do differently as a leader. So work with that instead of getting your back up and getting defensive, really working to continue to engage and continue to seek the right answer or the right idea.
Margie, that is great insight. I know that personally, when I have a great idea that I'm excited about and I get a chance to get to the table and I give it, and to your point, somebody goes, no, I get defensive because I've wrapped myself around that idea and it's personal for me. And you have to remember that when you're sometimes at that leadership table, it's not personal. There's different views, there's different perspectives. So how you work through it and how you respond, I think, is part of your leadership journey. Tamika asked a really great question. Have you ever encountered being told that you're bossy because of your assertiveness in your position? And if so, how do you combat that? Husbands are not allowed to answer if any of them are on this call.
Yeah, sometimes I hear this word from my husband, but that's the answer to the previous question as well. I can afford it, of course, but at home, I don't want to be bossy at all. In my office, sometimes I think it's a tool, as well. I may turn it into a joke, but bossy is not that a bad word in my understanding. Sometimes we can afford to be bossy in order to create something, to do something, because we take too much responsibility. Sometimes we don't want to waste time describing all the details, because we know that we should take this step, do certain things. And probably we are bossy, but who says that we shouldn't be bossy if we definitely see the result? That's my understanding. Of course, in private life, with friends, with people who live with me in the same city, and I know them as my companions in golf club or somewhere, I'm not bossy. But at work, yeah, it happens.
Thank you.
I have one last question. I'm not boss. That's all right. I always just say, I'm not bossy, I'm confident.
I like that. Good distinction. I have one last question, and then I'm going to, that I'll pose to the panelists, and then I'm going to hand it back to Dr. Bowen. Alicia asks, was there ever a point where you realized that your leadership style was not working? How did you realize a change was needed, and what changes did you make? And that's a tough question, because you have to realize that maybe you have to have that actualization that, maybe I'm not doing what I need to be doing. So I'll throw that out to our panelists.
I love that book, Crucial Conversations, because it's all in how you handle the discussion, because we've all been in situations where, it's been difficult. And one of the things I, try to have is transparency. And I always ask, help me understand what it was that, fill in the blank, how did I not show up? What is it that I can do better? And I think, in doing things like that, you need to be willing to listen to the feedback and have thick skin, because that's a process of learning. And so I always try to demonstrate some humility. Certainly if an apology is in order, then that takes place as well. Because I've never been one to profess to have all the answers, never want to be disrespectful, but I do want to be understood. And I want to make sure I'm able to understand those that I'm encountering or supervising.
Thank you. Well, I want to take a moment to thank all of our panelists. This was some great insight. I think as I reflect, that there's that common theme, being authentic, constant development, and not being afraid to get outside your comfort zone. I think that's how women become better leaders. I think that's how everyone becomes better leaders. There's a lot of theories out there about different transformational leadership, authentic leadership, servant leadership, and I think what we've learned here today is they all kind of jumble together to make the perfect leader, and that perfect leader is a journey, not a destination. So I want to thank our four panelists, and I want to thank Dr. Bowen for giving me the opportunity to develop my own moderating leadership. So thank you, and I will hand back to you, Dr. Bowen.
Great, awesome afternoon with such a great discussion. Thank you for sharing your leadership insight. We greatly appreciate it very much. Jenny, as you are posting the last slide, I also would like to thank Dr. Gary McDaniel for helping to birth the vision of this session, and so really appreciate your time. We wanted to share with you some of the upcoming events. On next Tuesday, we'll continue with our Demystifying Dark Transformational Leaders, and of course, we're going to talk about dark women leaders, so women who led in a transformational platform, but they were doing it from a different place. The third session is Effective Toxic Leadership. And so please sign up through our franklin.edu/Franklin University Leadership Center. And then also on Thursday the 27th, we'll be having a brain food session at 12 noon, dealing with the augmented and our virtual reality. So these have been great sessions, our brain food sessions, so please feel free to join us then. And then on June 16th, we'll have our sales speaker dealing with Thrive, turning uncertainty to your competitive advantage with Meredith Powell, and then Laurel Bailey will be on with us on July 22nd. Please visit us at franklin.edu, Franklin University Leadership Center, and then also our events calendar, and you'll be able to see all of our upcoming events. Once again, thank you so very much for a very insightful afternoon, and thank you all for attending. You all are great. I'm inspired to be the best leader I can be, and have a great afternoon. And if the panels participants can hang on for a few minutes, we'd appreciate it. And Sherry, thank you, Sherry.
Absolutely.